Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson doesn't think that Ethereum is going to make it another 10 years. We are going to look at this video on today's Frugal BC. By the way, guys, if you like this kind of content, please hit that like and subscribe button. You don't have to smash it. You can actually just press it gently, and it works just fine that way too. Since this is not an Algorand video, we do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Non-Fungible Domains for that .algo address, and to Marcus Aurelius, an NFT and meme coin project on the Algorand blockchain. Well, let's get to today's news because Charles Hoskinson put out a video that I think is probably it's definitely catching a lot of attention. You see it going around a lot, and basically the idea is that he doesn't think that Ethereum has the legs to make it 10 years. We're going to talk about why. He talks a lot about the technology, the technological issues, stuff around on-chain governance. He's got a lot of, it makes some very good points, some very interesting points. Some people, obviously, if you're a big Ethereum fan, you're going to completely disagree with this, but why don't we dive into this video because I think it's pretty significant and worth watching. Now, this video came from somebody asking, someone named Crypto Cameras and Music. That's a lot of stuff all in one. If you were running the Ethereum Foundation, what would you do differently in a broad sense? Let's see what he had to say.
If you were running the Ethereum Foundation, what would you do differently in a broad sense? Well, the number one problem Ethereum has is that they took an easy road out where they did three things wrong. So first off, wrong protocol. They have the wrong accounting model, they have the wrong virtual machine, and they have the wrong consensus. All of these were self-inflicted wounds. People told them not to do it. They did it, and they got where they needed to go. Second, what they chose to do to solve these problems is put in all these weird slashing economics and layer twos and other things. And now they're living with all of the consequences of these types of things.
Yeah, see, this is what I've been saying about Ethereum all along. Like, I just could never understand if you have this technology that constantly needs all these different changes. It needs layer twos in order to work. Like, maybe you just need a better layer one. That's kind of the idea that I've been pushing around because I just don't understand why something that seems so outdated. And only in crypto would this work. If you had a competitor come out, say, oh gosh, let's just say a game system. Let's say you came out with a game system, and then in a couple of years, other companies come out with better game systems and they just work like 10 times better. They're way faster, they're way smoother, they even cost less. Like Ethereum, if Ethereum was the game system would go out of business. But for some reason in crypto, and I could never understand this when I started making content about crypto, I just couldn't understand why Ethereum was so dominant. And I still don't, except for now I kind of understand network effects, I guess. This is kind of the problem because you need some of this stuff there needs to be some creative destruction. And I think the coin holding value of some of these coins prevents some of that creative destruction. So we don't see like poor competitors. A great example I like to use is I was playing a game called Gods Unchained on the Immutable X platform, and it was supposed to have all these like crypto elements. It was kind of Hearthstone-like. And one day I just couldn't play it. All the crypto features were basically shut off because the gas fees were too high. And I thought, well, why don't you go to a chain that actually has low gas fees instead of like trying to, make it work on this platform that obviously hinders functionality. It's been a shock to me. I don't really understand it. I know some people are really pro Ethereum, although I think those voices are starting to diminish. And listen, I own a little bit of Ethereum because I understand the crypto market, just like I don't like Solana either. I think it's a inferior technology. It's been down a bunch of times. 40% of the transactions fail, but I still own some because I don't know, crypto is weird and the price goes up on it. So whatever.
And third, they really don't have a good on-chain governance system. So really what needs to happen is you need a parallel track with solving all those three things. First off, you have to solve your technological problems. So the current protocol they have for proof of stake is wrong, and they need to wean themselves off of that protocol gradually. And I think Ouroboros Laos, this whole telescoping protocol design is the way to go. And there are certainly other ways you can go, but I think the object model of SWI would be probably the best model for them. SWI solved a lot of things. Narwhal and Tusk is good. The dev model is not so bad. I think it is good to go to RISC-V. That's a really good decision for Vitalik to make. It makes a lot of sense. But the accounting model also has to be kind of revised a little bit. And that's why the SWI style approach is better. If you want to stay on accounts, you have to move to like Anomia. You have to do intents. And something like RISC-V with intents with an object model like SWI probably would fit their ecosystem quite well. And then Narwhal and Tusk style consensus is probably good enough for them. because there'll always be somewhat centralized with that. And then they have to, second path, build an on-chain government so they actually can solve all these crazy problems with upgrading the system and rallying people and coordinating people. And then they have to find a way to have the layer twos not be parasitic. And unfortunately, I don't see a path on how to do that easily. It's going to be a very hostile divorce to resolve these types of things because the tokenomics are what they are. That's why we thought about a lot about how to build a layer two ecosystem in Cardano that's non-parasitic, but it's actually symbiotic.
This is a really important point because, when I was talking about creative destruction, this is kind of what I mean. So think about like search engines, the first search engines, like they're gone. They're long past. We have, because like Google figured out a better way to do it. Now, I think Google's probably ready for some disruption too. And in fact, it is being disrupted by AI because I tell you, like searching for things these days on Google just sucks. It's gotten really bad. And it's weird because they spend so much time trying to improve it, but it keeps getting worse for some reason. I don't really understand that, but I think this is a good example. So people like Charles, like Sylvia Macaulay and Algorand, the Sweet folks. I mean, they all looked at Ethereum and said, how can we do this better? And someone like Sweet probably looked at Cardano and Algorand and thought, how could we do this better? And in some ways it is, some ways it isn't. With Sweet, I don't like they have a super high requirement to run a node, which means it's really not decentralized because it means only a handful of whales can run nodes. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think this is important stuff to keep in mind because I don't think he's wrong at all. I think he's 100% right on this. I think Ethereum is going to lose market share. We've seen it where it hasn't pumped the same way it used to. Meanwhile, competitors like XRP are nipping on its heels. I could see XRP flipping ETH within a couple of years. I really can. It just has a very fervent fan base, and you don't run into too many Ethereum fans. Like it's kind of like it's the first one, so I have a little or whatever. I've met people in real life that have Ethereum holdings, so it's not like obviously it's somebody because it's the price is still like 1,500, 1,600. But yeah, I think the thing he's pointing out really makes a lot of sense, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying about creative destruction.
That's what Midnight is doing with Cardano. So we have the right accounting model, we have the right consensus model. We have the right virtual machine model because we're already on RISC-V because of the Bitcoin DeFi stuff that we're doing. And that's always there. And it can easily be integrated into Midgard as an extension. And, Hydra is like hand in glove, the type of stuff that you need. And we already have the on-chain government. And, it's kind of weird now, but it'll be awesome in 3 to 5 years. For them at their scale and size, it'll take 5 to 7 years to build an on-chain government. So I don't think Ethereum will survive.
Yeah, 5 to 7 years. Meanwhile, like so many platforms already have on-chain governance, like Algorand. I think Cardano does, or I'm a little confused on what's going on. There's stuff going on with Cardano that I've been trying to get to the bottom of, and this is why I found this is one of my frustrations with Google is like he's trying to search for the stuff and it brings up like Cardano price today. It's like all junk. It's all junkified. Like they're supposed to be getting rid of the junk, and it does worse. So I don't know. I should probably try AI and see if that brings up anything. But the problem is if it takes you 5 to 7 years just to get even with your competitors, how are you going to survive? Like that's crazy. You're just going to lose market share. Then again, like I said, it's crypto, so who knows? Like things work weird in crypto.
More than 10 years to 15 years. The layer twos will continue to suckle out all of the alpha, and people will start fighting, and it'll get harder and harder for Vitalik to be able to hold it together through sheer force of will. And users will gradually migrate to other places, and then they're going to get eclipsed by Bitcoin DeFi because once that turns on, the TVL will be larger than Ethereum. And a lot of people will start migrating in that particular direction. And that paradigm's in UTXO, so very naturally starts moving people in that direction. And the other thing is they're being eaten alive by Solana and Sui and these other things. So brilliant project. It's just victim of its own success, like MySpace or any of these other things that have a lot of network effect and momentum. BlackBerry is another example.
MySpace, perfect example, because think about it. MySpace was like the bomb back in the day. So is the bomb. That's another good example. Very archaic. The bomb was probably something that was popular to say when MySpace was popular. I had a MySpace account. A lot of people I know back then did, and then Facebook came along, and it was such a nice, clean user interface that I think everyone wanted to be on it because MySpace, I don't know if a lot of you, some of you might be too young to remember MySpace, but people could like really bling out their pages and they were hideous. I mean, people would put sparkles everywhere. It was GIF City, basically. It was, or Flash City, I guess. Just stuff, going crazy at you. And it was a visual assault. A lot of people's pages were basically a visual assault. So then when you have Facebook come along, it was like, oh, this is nice and clean. And I can just see the updates of people. I don't have to like have glitter sparkling at me and burning my eyes. So I think that's the way I see it with these newer layer ones, is they're just providing a better experience, a better technology, and it's time for Ethereum to start going.
But people have fundamentally different paradigms that over the long term are intrinsically superior, and they creep up on you. Like Perplexity could destroy Google if they're not careful. Every year it gets a little better. It starts getting more and more people, and then you start noticing, like, hang on a second here, 85% of all the searches I did were with Perplexity. I don't see any ads. It's easy to use. I can get very exacting answers. I can be, it just tells me the answer. Like Google, go to Google, you search on Google, and you're like, God, okay, how many people have diabetes in the state of North Dakota who are over the age of 55? It's a question, right? You'll get some websites. You have to go to the websites. You have to scan through the website, see if there's a table or anything like that. You go to Perplexity, it thinks for a bit and just gives you an answer.
By the way, Google does have AI, but it'll give you an answer. It'll give a link, but the link is never like it has that little link. Like I want to just click on that and it take me to the source. Don't like put a little sidebar, because I don't even trust your sidebar. And a lot of times those sources just don't look very good. I don't know. Now I always test them, and my biggest test is like Algorand's TPS, because it's been changing and growing. It's changed and grown so many times that I can, by asking what the TPS is, I can triangulate to where, how long ago is its information? How out of date is it? More often than not, it's almost never accurate. If it says 10,000, I'm like, okay, it's up to date, even though Algorand has actually clocked in at 15,000, over 15,000 TPS. Its theoretical max is 10K, but it's actually been over that and held up. So I think that's really interesting. Occasionally, so if an AI says like over 15,000, I'm like, well, you're up to date, you're really good. So
that's much better search. That's what you want, not where to find what you want. So when these new paradigms come, if you don't tackle them immediately, they kill you very quickly. And that's where Ethereum is at.
So a lot of the things Charles Hoskinson talked about are stuff that I've said all along. Now, obviously, he understands the technical side of it far better than I ever will. But I think it's interesting that someone who does have that extreme technical knowledge but basically says the same stuff I've been saying for a long time, pretty much since I started making content on crypto. Now, I've been in crypto since 2017, but I didn't really do content around it until 2021. It's always surprised me that people would just put up with Ethereum's obvious limitations, and that also that Vitalik never seemed super concerned. Like I would hear interviews with him and we kind of brush off the technical limitations, and I thought, dude, that's a competitive advantage that your competitors have that you don't. I would be really concerned about that. Like imagine if Amazon took 10 days to deliver and its fees were really expensive, and then a new platform came along and offered the same products. Maybe you didn't even have as many products yet, but it was free delivery, or even like really, it was $1 delivery and it came in 2 days. Amazon would go out of business. So this has always surprised me about the crypto world, how something that can be obviously inferior somehow still has the advantage, and it takes a really long time. It's because those network effects are really strong, and if you have a good user base, the switching costs can be incredible. It's very surprising. Crypto is just one of those things. It's things work a little bit differently here than they do in every other aspect of life. It's really fascinating and surprising, and it's always perplexed me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it's always interesting to pay attention to Charles Hoskinson and what he says. I have a little bit of Cardano. I'm not a huge Cardano guy. I like Charles. I think I've enjoyed his interviews. I think he has interesting stuff. I'm trying to dig up, if you guys have sources for some of that drama around RFPs, let me know, because I see a lot of stuff that's kind of talking about it, but I'm having a hard time finding something that just sums up the situation in my research. So if you guys have some of that info, feel free to link me. I do allow links, but don't spam it. I will block you. So anyway, I'm Frugal BC. I hope you're doing well out there. Stay safe, and I will see you in the future.